If every woman understood the value she carries in her center, women would be running around with bodyguards in this society.
For episode 24, my guest is Mallence Bart-Williams, a Sierra Leonean German multifaceted social entrepreneur who works across disciplines. From her work in Asia on womb wellness, to her work with startups in Africa, to her creative collective, Follow Run Show, that takes homeless youth off the streets by harnessing their creativity in Freetown, and there's much more. Before we dive into the conversation, a reminder that my Presence Mentoring Program is still open for applications if you want to go on a 6-month leadership journey with me. Information for this is at www.amisha.co.uk. And don't forget that you make this show. If you're enjoying the series and want to support us, please make a monthly donation over at our community page on www.thefutureisbeautiful.co. It is our dream to be totally listener funded before long. This was meant to be the last episode in the series, but we have decided to extend this as we have so many wonderful guests to share. I hope that you enjoy this conversation. Welcome to The Future is Beautiful, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between politics, spirituality, creativity, and sustainability. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a brighter future. Despite the challenges we face as a global community, or the pressures that we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to dream, to ask ourselves the big questions and to share what we are already doing, we create the future that we wish to wake up for. That future is beautiful. I'm delighted to be joined by Mallence. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
We have had an incredible day of conversations.
Indeed.
And it felt like there was so much that we wanted to share with a wider audience. And the first part that would be really interesting is to understand a little bit more about my secret Ceres and where it came from and what it is.
It's actually an ancient rejuvenation, wellness, holistic beauty tool that was initially entirely reserved for the concubines of the king, because some of the ingredients are quite pricey. There's one ingredient inside that costs 3,000 euros per kilo, because the trees have to be a few hundred years old. So the trees we use, they're between 200 and 400 years old in order for the roots to reach that deeply into the earth to draw specific minerals that give it that outstanding potency. So at that time, it was like the concubines, they needed to be on point, and it was reserved for them. So the tradition was, it was for the royal family and the extended courtesans.
In which country?
That was in the Asian archipelago. And so to this very day, it's actually made by the same royal family lineage. So I partnered with a prince of this royal family, and we are doing this in partnership since like a good decade, a bit over a decade, because it's almost divine. Nothing is like coincidence, like how our encounter today happened. Neither, I met Alex, and meeting you, and the conversation came because she knows it from New York, and that was we discovered in the middle of the rice fields in Bali, So basically, this generation, they have 5 sons, so they don't have a daughter. Usually it's passed down through the feminine in the line. And so they really took me like their daughter, and I've been doing this business, building it for over a decade, compliances in Europe, conformity, like laboratory analysis, regulations that you need to consider in order to sell something that's ancient, traditional, 2,000-year-old product to a a Western international market, you know, because people have limited understanding of how holistic alchemistic products work. You know, they have a set like guidelines of rules that you have to follow and comply with.
Where's the family based now?
They're based in a tiny kingdom, and I'm not going to reveal the name for various reasons. Number one, because we had our fair share of experiences. You know, our manufacturing plant was burned down and so on, you know.
Can you share the country? Or
And
it's better to be completely mysterious?
You'll understand, because there's certain things in there. I mean, it's a powerful product. You know, you saw her, she knows about it all the way from New York. She was raving about it. So it's a powerful product, not just because of what's in it, of the way it's made, but also because of what's in it. We work in an entirely biodynamic process. It takes 3 months from start to finish to make it. However, if this now falls into the hands of, let's say, a L'Oreal or whatever, a big company, certainly this tradition would not be sustainable, because there's limited resources of everything. So we make limited amounts, and they would come, they would reap it, and that would be the end of it, you know? And I certainly don't want that to happen, and I totally respect the secrecy that surrounds it. It's part of the mystery, but I can tell you that much at this point. Our GMP certified warehouses in Java, you know, that is the part where we, you know, like, where we kind of, in order to be compliant, you know, to comply with regulations and so on. But a lot is done in very mysterious, mystical ways, and that I'm not allowed to reveal, also out of respect to the royal family.
That's beautiful, and I'm happy to honor that.
Yeah,
and
because
also,
the trees, for instance, that I mentioned, where it's 3,000 euros per kilo, there's like 400 and around 450, 470 of that tree is the tree count of that particular tree, but with that potency. And what it is with the tree, you can only harvest the middle of the branches or the root. So basically, we don't touch the root in order to protect the tree. Not everybody has that integrity when it comes to nature. A lot of people have approached me when it became big, you know, through resellers like Adina Rivers or others. I was approached by a lot of people where you understood it was for the money, you know. And for me, it's for the woman. And they don't have that integrity towards Mother Earth. They would take the entire tree, because the root is, as a matter of fact, is almost even more potent, you know. But if we touch the roots, this tree will eventually die, you know. But a lot of people don't have that thinking. So when we harvest the branches, it needs to be done with care, with sensitivity. You take a few branches, because the middle is potent, and then you let the tree be to rebranch and regrow. And you can't be like a butcher chopping it off. Let's say the root, let's say a woman has a severe condition in her womb, I would make a special wand where we integrate the root, you know. But unless that is the case, and then we just take a little bit in order not to tamper the tree. So it's really like, these are sacred trees to us.
You work in partnership with the trees.
Yes, exactly, you know, and that has to be really honored and understood. So that's why I don't want to tell people too much, because I know the majority of the world, they don't function like that, because otherwise the earth would not be so exploited, you know, whether that's our minerals, whether that's our everything, you know. We just ravish. There's so much greed among people, and I've never done it with this intention, and I have no plans on changing my intentions about it.
Yeah, I honor that.
Yeah. And especially with your cultural background, you can understand a little bit about, you know, how different energies are like manifested into a product, you know, whether that's pitta, vata, whatever. It's all comprised into this product in an alchemistical process. So it's like, for me, it's almost an honor to be allowed into that space of this royal family, because, you know, like their library alone, these are ancient sacred texts that they have handed down from generation to generation in this kingdom, where it's magical, it's not, it's almost supernatural. A lot of stuff is a little bit supernatural.
How did you meet this family?
It was destiny. It's almost like, how did I meet you? Look, where we I can't even tell people where we are right now because this is very intimate, right?
Well, we met 5 hours ago.
And we're in bed together, kind of. No, it wasn't like that. But I was living in Singapore at the time, and I was gifted this product by somebody that goes deep into the jungles, travels deeper, off the beaten path. And initially, I didn't understand the full impact of this product, the full potency, and wasn't so tuned in and conscious as I am now. This was over a decade. When I came across this product was actually almost 2 decades ago, was around 2000, 2001, and I was just, it's natural, maybe let me insert it, leave it in for about 10 minutes and then see, maybe something will happen. And I was that was way too long, and I was oh my God, blown away by the result. The tightening effect is what you immediately notice, but for me, I had overdone it, and I didn't have that understanding that I have now. I didn't have the understanding of my body, so it was initially I panicked, and then, however, I came to understand and enjoy all the benefit that this product has brought to my life, the way it balances your center, which happens to be the womb, and unless the center of an organism is balanced, the entire organism is out of balance, it's a natural physical law. So then I went on a quest to find who is the originator of this, and then the rest is history and destiny. It was really, that was written,
Beautiful. Yeah. So we've been a little bit mysterious about what this product is.
Yeah.
And now it's time to share a little bit
about the secret.
not all the secrets, just what the product is and what it does. And I will say, men, don't tune out because you came from a womb.
Yes, exactly. And you do everything in your life after you've learned how to eat, walk, shit, sleep, to return into this womb, After you've done with learning to exist without a woman, you are very determined to re-enter a woman, So it's I think men will tune in because they also enjoy the benefits of it,
Yeah.
So, in short, it's an amazing, magical tool that purifies, cleanses, remineralizes, nurtures, tightens, balances the woman, and her hormonal operation. It's an operation you run down there. An operation that no lab, no single or multiple brains are able to replicate each month. You create a potential human life, and you have 2 million of these potentialities within your womb, and that's why I'm always it needs to be honored. If every woman understood the value she carries in her center, women would be running around with bodyguards in this society. And they should, because look how men are stealing from this, and even if when they do organ harvesting, how much is your womb worth? That's already $20,000 minimum, but no money in this world can pay for it, So it's a tool that totally naturally nurtures, rebalances, rejuvenates, It's almost like you take your car for service, because what's the point of just shining the outside of a car without dedicating care to the engine, giving it oil and all these things that it needs in order to run properly. And we do such an extraordinary divine job as women every month to create the potentiality of an Einstein, a Krishna, a Christ, whatever, however far you take it with your womb. Because obviously, according to the womb, that you foster, that you maintain, that you also invite souls into that space in accordance to, the alignment you're in with your womb. So it's a self-care tool in the deepest and probably most profound sense that I believe every woman should own, the way every woman owns a toothbrush, I feel it's unfair that our hair, our nails, our lashes, our teeth, our ears get more attention than the womb.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Well, in Western culture, we get taught to stick a tampon up there,
Yes.
to take contraceptive
Yes.
pills. Like, none of these things, made of toxic materials, like...
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
Horrible. Just yesterday, I learned about actually the founding father of gynecology, and for everybody that understands the type of monster that this person is, you'll be surprised that how could that ever be healing? Dr. J. Marion Sims.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the founding father of gynecology, and he was a monster. The atrocities he committed to women, and that everything that's presently done to women, the continuation of these atrocities are doomed medicinal remedies, or that's just so far-fetched. That's me saying, okay, Hitler should get the Nobel Peace Prize. This guy operated on women without anesthetics in their womb. The things he would stick up in there, and it's like, especially on black women, they used them because they assumed at that time black people didn't experience pain to the same extent. No anesthetics. They would cut on her ovaries, on her womb, on her, and because the woman couldn't bear the pain, she had to be controlled by how many men held down. It was just like, and you see, the things they stick up your vagina. If you go to a gynecologist, is that loving? How much love has this space that is responsible for humanity? Excuse me? How much love has this space received whenever you talk about these intelligent cells, the masterminds? There's a master laboratory there. People say, oh, cells have memory. No, cells have an intelligence. As a result, they have memory. So they pick up on how you communicate about it. But have you ever said anything loving about your ovaries, about your womb, about it's medicinal? Something's wrong with it. It's some kind of term that's, whether it's hysterectomy, ovaries, that. There is never loving energy attached to it. Menstruation, everything is shame, shun, medical condition. It's like, it's almost like women are being ostracized for the greatest gift they have, for what makes them a woman, for being, in that moment, you're God. Because if we can say we've been created in her image, well, in the moment we create life, we are, So to me, that's like, I think this place should be revered how it used to be, in ancient times. And I revere it by nurturing it. I revere it by speaking about it in loving capacity and honoring the potentiality every month, and touching it in a different way, not even going near, not in a 100-mile radius to a gynecologist ever.
Mm-hmm.
Never ever. And of course, a tool like Secret Sarah's, you don't need no gynecologist anymore. I haven't been in probably 2 decades.
And you really feel that confident about it?
Sometimes I go just to do, almost if I do research on myself and the flora. They've never seen such a flora. They're like, what is this even? This is so amazing. Oh my God. How can you have such a vaginal flora? I'm like, yeah. And then I went to this lady, and because it was actually this healer from Eat, Pray, Love, when she said, you have something in your womb. I'm like, really? And then I decided to actually do a checkup. She couldn't really see anything. She said, oh, I see something. I said, whatever it is, I'll leave it right there. And then she told me, oh, last time you've been here was 8 years ago. I said, oh, okay, I should not come for another 8 years. And so every time she tells me, oh my God, your flora is so amazing, I have not had an infection in 17 years. I've never had any of these other issues that we come across frequently. Every second woman suffers of human papillomavirus. Let that sink in. 3 out of 5 women have fibroids. Is that normal? No. Gynecologists, they tell you it's normal that the vagina has a smell. I don't think so. Something is clearly telling you something's wrong here. No, that's normal. You shouldn't wash there. Why not? Why should I wash my mouth, which is a mucus opening? Why should I wash my nostrils? Why should I clean my ears and not my vagina? How does that make sense? And when you look in ancient scriptures, whether it's the Quran or whatever, people were cleansing there, with all kind of flower bath and so on. So that's how I honor this space. And I just feel they're clueless. And clearly when we understand where they received their knowledge from, where it was all rooted, obviously you must be clueless, And if medical advancement would bring benefit to humanity, we wouldn't have more and more sick women. We wouldn't have hysterectomy. That is performed on a woman is so rudimentary. Imagine that came out of India or Africa. They would say, oh, these people are so primitive. They cut out a woman's womb. But because it's in the Western world, it's considered medical advancement. Really, you have no other remedy than to cut the thing out because there's something wrong with it. That to me is like, you can't be trusted. You shouldn't come near a human being. If you cut out a womb, I don't know. That's my philosophy, and I've been successful with it. Nothing wrong with me, and I believe it has something to do with me staying away from what could potentially throw me off balance, because the things they prescribe and so on, it has never helped me in the long run, In the past, I've had infections. You get a canesten or some kind of thing. Does that solve the problem? No, because you go back. Otherwise, people wouldn't go back. We have gynecologists in Germany that recommend this for HP, human papillomavirus, stage 1 to 4, because it prevents them from having to do surgery. So if you have something that can naturally rejuvenate you, shed your cells, and you can maintain that, because imagine the time before the toothbrush, the kind of ulcers, bad odors, infections people had in their mouth, because of lack of proper hygiene. So I feel that's really what's lacking over the years, the benefit it has brought to people that were it was almost like sentenced for, I call it sentenced for hysterectomy, because it's a sentence for a woman. It messes up your entire system. When a male doctor, why are they allowed to practice something they have no clue about? They never will. You don't have a vagina, you don't have a womb. Sit down, take several seats, end of it. Don't come now and... No. It's just it's almost like, would you allow an elephant to practice? You wouldn't, because this is not a human. He should not be allowed to practice on human beings. So a man should not be allowed to practice on a female womb, because this is something you will never understand. In 5 lifetimes, you won't understand it, unless you come back as a woman. So why is it legal for a man to practice on a woman? Come up with this nonsense. So I feel it's patriarchy. It's the result of patriarchy. I mean, there's statues. How many statues in the United States of this monster? The founding father of gynecology, and just that says it all. And we've come across a lot of women that were sentenced to do a hysterectomy, because the implications it has. You can't just tell a woman, oh, you've had children, let's take out your engine. A man would not do that when he goes to the Porsche or Mercedes store. Oh, you've already driven a car, let's take out the engine.
I believe the fallopian tubes are named after the doctor.
Really?
It's a similar story. think black women, but I'm not 100% sure, or Central American women. It was one or the other, I don't remember. And the same thing. And the reason it's called the fallopian tube is because he discovered it whilst working on women without anesthetics.
Oh, it's probably then the same monster, because I feel men should be selling cars. They're great at this. You know, if I had a car dealership, I would really not necessarily hire a woman. You know, I feel they should be selling cars, because to a car, they would never allow the engine being taken out, which does not enter a man's mind. So I feel it's safe to allow them to sell cars and houses. You wouldn't just remove the entire living room or take out the basement. In the States, they don't really have basements, but in Germany, no engineer would say, let's remove the basement. No, you know, the statics won't uphold this, it will collapse. But so I feel they're great at certain things, but allow a man to become a gynecologist, operate on a woman, that should be illegal. How can he? He doesn't know nothing. He doesn't know shit. And when you see how women are made to bear children, you're on your back, anti-gravity. I mean, the dumbest fool will understand that this is not the way to shit, to pee, to birth. Who does that? Do you know? And this man got a medical degree. I don't understand how somebody that lacks the most basic common understanding, that even a 3-4-year-old knows how to use the toilet, and would develop something that's more conducive to the woman. So how can somebody that doesn't understand the basics, how is that person given a medical degree? That puzzles me. Just so that he can comfortably spread your legs, look into your vagina, and pull this baby out. Okay, cool. Shouldn't we be supporting the mother? She's bringing a life from another dimension onto planet Earth. Shouldn't we be supporting, but supportive to her, and not like giving her epidural so she doesn't feel anything? She doesn't feel. You cannot possibly deliver in this state. Try to take a shit with your legs up. This is going to be all kind of messy. You know, so that's what they do to women. So I feel these guys are highly unqualified, and unfortunately, women have fed into that due to the system we live in, which is highly patriarchal, where a lot of things that men propagate is just like, okay, this is like the amen in the church, let's all subscribe to that without questioning, you know, whether that actually makes the slightest bit of sense. So it's like, no, I am all down when somebody's intelligent, you know, brings something intelligent to the human experience, but I stay away when I realize the opposite is done.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing this earlier, how so many of the thoughts that we have and what we accept have come, you know, it's like, I don't even think that, you know, but I don't feel that, I don't resonate with it, but yet still I say it, I accept it, and like the work that it takes to change that. I mean, even now, people still freak out when people say they're going to have a home birth or they're going to have a birthing pool. Or it's still like,
almost
what?
illegal.
Yeah.
And doulas and midwives are being pushed out of the market. They're being ostracized almost. Everything is made difficult. If you want to take your placenta home, I created this. 9 months it took me. May I take this home? This is my foot. This is my placenta. No, you need to sign off all kind of legalities. Paperwork in the hospital, because they know the value of this thing. They'll use it. Creams, melanin, you know, all kind of stuff. So I feel it's undignified. Birthing should be dignified. A woman with her legs up, Dick, Tom, and Harry staring into her vagina, that's not a dignified position for a woman. You know, and a birth should be like, you're a goddess in this moment. You know, you should be like, oh my God. You know, that should be your experience.
You're
and it's
bringing
traumatic.
Life into the
bringing
world.
Life. It should be like, wow, you know? So this should be in the most beautiful environment you can imagine, with the most supportive, loving human beings around you. And that can't be a stranger that I've never met, that I don't know his personal issues and so on. I don't mind a man being there, but let that be my husband who contributed to creating this awesome life, or somebody I trust, a loving family member, friend. But a stranger, a strange man, to me, that is rape. That's rape. You have no business near my vagina.
So talking about the undignified ways that people are treated in our humanity, as a woman that is of African descent, your father from Sierra Leone, I know that you have done a lot of inquiry into what it means to have African blood at this time in history, and the roots of what that means for so many people around the world that are black. And I would love for you to share some of what you've discovered.
I would say, for the longest time, black people have experienced genocide, and as much as we don't want to realize it's going on today in front of our eyes. We see innocent black people being murdered in the USA on a daily basis, even propagated on TV, and it's made very clear, as a white cop, you will not be sentenced, you will not be held responsible, and one couldn't demonstrate more blatantly that means this life is worthless, right? In Australia, unfortunately, we don't hear a lot about it on the news. A genocide has happened that diminished the black people there to a mere, I think it's 3 or 4% of the original population. And whilst this is not being propagated, there's a lot of activism happening there by Aborigines because the genocide is still happening, mass incarceration and so on, the same system as is being perpetrated in the US, but a lot of people don't even understand the mechanism of it. And so it's almost like we had to become so resilient, and we are extremely resilient because we survive, At the turn of this century, non-colored people will be reduced to a single digit. This is awesome.
Wow.
This is like, this world will be colored. Very colored. They'll merely make up 8%, so the power dynamics will shift. So I feel like everybody that's not colored should a little bit start to show up, be accountable, and treat colored people with respect, because you could easily end up at the shorter end of the stick at some point, even though colored people are extremely compassionate considering what has happened to them, when you see how they are hospitable and so on, considering what has happened to them in Africa and South Africa. Till recently, we had apartheid. This is a crime against humanity. This is not too long ago, and now it's a big deal. These people want their land back. You came, you saw, you stole. This shit needs to be returned. It ain't yours. So that is not really up for debate. Nowhere in the world we would be discussing this, If we had terrorists coming into Germany, stealing people's land, like killing our president, issuing themselves passports, and afterwards making a bit drama because maybe German people want their land back, this would not make sense to no one. That's why Jewish people receive their property back and are still being paid. Common sense, because you can't repay genocide. But when it comes to black people, everybody dooms them undeserving of what belongs to them. So explain to me, when you, within Germany, Britain, or whatever, you understand exactly, you can differentiate between mine and yours. And the moment you leave to a place where there's colored people, whether that's India, Pakistan, Africa, Australia, Americas, Caribbean, you suddenly get these two things confused. You can't possibly be that stupid, because they're not. My mother is German. These are highly intelligent people. So it's like, be accountable, be accountable. And I would say it's tough growing up as a black person. I grew up as a black person in Germany. Of course, racism galore. I didn't know it any different. It was a daily thing, but I'm still privileged because I'm half white. So privileged as opposed to people that are darker than me. Basically, that could be their death sentence in the US. Just because you're dark, you could be killed for driving your car, for walking in a neighborhood. That could be your death sentence. So let that sink in. What does that mean for a black man to walk around with that consciousness that any moment he could be shot for no good reason? What does that mean for a black woman to have to give her child the talk, they call it now in the black community, so that child will understand its demeanor can determine its chance at life? Don't wear a black hoodie when you see a cop. Almost be submissive. I mean, where are we going with humanity? Why also, I almost think, what are you inviting karmically? Because I had this a little bit of epiphany. I thought, okay, what are you, Mallence? And you and I, we talked about this, that your grandmother created you because your mom, whilst she was in your grandmother's womb, had you as an egg in her, you know? Yeah. And I feel that's as profound as Steve Jobs created the Apple Macintosh. I have an influence on what I program on it, but there's a hardware that is designed a certain way. And your grandmother, all credit to her for designing this hardware. We have influence on the software, and we need to take charge of consciously programming that software, because I realized, okay, what runs in my blood? African side, strong matriarchal lineage. Yeah, my name, Mallence. It was a queendom in the former Malian kingdom. You know, matriarchal. So it's a title that I inherited from my grandmother, great-great-grandmother. Mallence is being paid forward on old ancient maps before 1700. You can see it. So, and my German lineage didn't interest me to that extent because I don't carry that name, so it never fully resonated. But my mom, my grandmother was Ritz, right? So her cousins went off, started, that part of her family started the hotel in Paris, you know, that we now became a worldwide situation. Then I had a great-great-grandfather, Comte in Hotel, aristocracy, general in the French army. Power gone the opposite way. How much blood is attached to that? How much karmic debt is running through my veins, not just the German heritage, but because of that French lineage too. I mean, generally in the French army, can you imagine? Thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths that he's directly responsible for, which I carry karmically, whether I like it or not. And to say, oh, it has nothing to do with me, is almost too easy. Yes, you can let it go and release it, but you need to acknowledge that first, that made an imprint on you. His karma, his trauma, because it's also traumatizing when you're a mass murderer. You are traumatized by your actions, whether you like to acknowledge it or not. That runs in my veins. Maybe that's why I subconsciously rejected it, you know, for the longest time. And just acknowledged that very recently. And through that, I have the chance to release it, to reprogram it, to understand, yes, that is power. But I can use this power in a positive context. And I feel looking at DNA, looking at the womb, that we almost always jump a generation within creation. I now carry eggs. And once these eggs grow into a fetus, that carries my grandchild, you know? So how I think, how I feel, what I'm made of, how aware I am, directly impacts already my grandchild, you know? My grandmother, I can't say that has not impacted my DNA, you know? And I need to be responsible. I need to be aware of that. I need to understand my ancestors committed atrocities. I need to acknowledge that, not be shy to acknowledge that. And a lot of people in Europe unfortunately have a huge issue with acknowledging that. And I feel that also is part of the imbalance, because you can truly heal when somebody comes to you and acknowledges the wrong they've done to you. That is a huge force of healing. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. You know, this Ho'oponopono. These 3 words can move mountains, you know? So sometimes it's really that simple, you know? It's really like, what do you do to somebody in South Africa that lost their entire grandchildren during apartheid? Every weekend they need to bury somebody. Do you know the impact if genuinely a white European settler in South Africa came to them and apologized from the depth of their heart, that has, you know, on both ends? Because this person clears their karma and this person receives healing, you know. And I feel if we move forward as humanity responsibly, understanding what we carry in ourselves that are very intelligent, and remember, and trauma is hereditary, talent is hereditary, so many things are hereditary. You know, if we really understand that consciously, we can really build a bridge and heal, I feel.
Yeah, beautiful.
And yeah, it all starts with self-awareness, you know.
It takes a lot. It's not a quick fix thing.
No, it's not a quick fix thing, and it all starts with self, you know. We all have to start with ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
And
there are so many layers to it, and I know that, you know, I realize how free I am, and I took that for granted growing up in England, and, you know, everyone around me was free, and then we would go to India a few times when I was younger, and I was very troubled by what I saw, like the depths of of poverty, and it gave me a lot of questions about why I had all the privilege that I had. But what's been really striking me recently is freedom, and it's this thing that, you know, how amazing. I'm sitting in Bali right now, on your bed, and we're having a conversation about these issues as women of color.
yeah.
And, you know, these are not the kind of things that I would be talking about if I was needing to be married soon, or, you know, in the cultural system, like, and, you know, there's so much freedom in my life, and yet, and I think about, you know, my mother, who she worked so hard. Like, she had the opportunity to work, which was amazing. Her sister was very much in the house, and she got to go to college and become a psychiatrist, and has had this amazing career, but she's worked so hard, like so hard. And my grandmother was very much of the house, you know, and the children and the house, and that was her life. And so to just be able to travel somewhere because you want to be able to think about and talk about the things that you want to be able to be this age and not be married yet, like, these are incredible freedoms. And yet sometimes I don't feel free. And I've been wondering, like, what is that? You know, it's,
the emotion of it.
And it struck me that the ancestry of the Indian woman, like, that's a lot to hold. And so even if I have freedom in certain ways, clearing the depths of the inner freedom of the lineage
and the emotional imprint,
it's a lot of
your grandmother who created this heart, this, you know, this vessel, this designed this. Exactly.
And that's just me, right? And so every single person that is listening to this show has a story.
Exactly.
And they have ancestors, and, you know, we are a generation that is much more free. There's freedom of movement, being able to get on planes, being able to do whatever work we want to do, being able to be nomadic, being able to work for ourselves, not have to go and work for the man if we don't want to. There is so much freedom. And yet we're all coming from a history.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a lot of freedom in that history.
But to the realization, what empowered me was the realization that I can finally own it by decoding it. Because I feel there was a reason that I rejected it. You have to understand, I was born and I rejected my mother's milk. I mean, I was an infant. I was like 1 year, 1 day, 2 days, I rejected her milk. Not that she didn't have milk, but my consciousness, I came with that much intelligence to say, no, that information I don't want. Why? There must be a reason, right? I grew in her womb. There was a reason that I rejected it, because now I believe that there was so much imprint and information and programming that you receive through your mother's milk that I did not want to receive. You know, and a child comes with so much intelligence and higher consciousness, and whilst decoding all of this recently, it made me now fully accept that I am of that too, however unpleasant this may sound, or however much I reject what this stands for, you know, and that helped me to build a total different connection with my mother now at an adult age. And I feel when we understand, you know, that number one, we're all players in this thing called life, and to understand where she comes from, the traumas that were enforced onto her post-war generation in Germany, growing up, seeing people missing leg, missing this, missing that, growing up with so much fear as a little girl. Then the grandmother living in a war, constantly having to run into bunkers and basements because bombing, constant fear. So all this, and to say this has nothing to do with me would be stupid. Would deprave me of a potentiality that I have when I acknowledge this, when I own this, in order to fully let it go, you know, and release it. And all these emotional things, they carry it forward. Fear, trauma, when you say you have that feeling inside of you that something doesn't feel fully free, it's probably not your feeling, but your grandmother's feeling that you feel, you know. And as you said, it's a lot to hold. It's a lot to hold, you know. What women had to hold, like when we just wrap our heads around that, you think we're holding a lot. What women had to hold before, it's like what has been done generationally, and that's where we get back to the womb, to this part of the body. There is no, I don't know, there's no redemption big enough to make up for this, what has been done to the womb in all forms and facets, psychologically, physically, what women were made to go through, you know, from rape to childbirth, to having to give away children, to being able to feed children, from not being able to feed children, to everything, you know, generationally, what was there.
And even just on the simplest level, the being cut off from creative expression.
Yeah. Whilst being the creative source, because that's also a form of the utmost form of creative expression is creating a life, right?
Yeah.
So, but not being able to do that consciously with love, where you can choose that this being is created in love.
And in many cultures, it being wrong if you create a girl, not a boy.
Exactly.
And
create a girl. How would humanity sustain itself if you wouldn't create girls? Shouldn't they be so revered? And do you know what always puzzles me, the perplexity, maybe you can shine light on that, is that theoretically, in Hindu culture, women are revered. The goddesses. You guys have female goddesses not for days, for years. So when did that shift happen? Because yes, you worship her, clearly. You can see it on all the paintings, on all the sculptures. I see goddesses galore. So there's like that controversy where suddenly the female is not honored. So I don't understand, generally, not just in India, but there is real tangible remnants of a time where it must have been different, you know. but everywhere in the world. When did this switch happen? How did that happen? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's the patriarchalizing of society through religion, all of this. And it's interesting with India, the paradox of the world, right? But that India does have this goddess culture, and yet the rape and the sexual violence is so strong. And one of the reasons for that is that, you know, in Delhi, for example, where it is, you know, the darkest in terms of what can happen to women there, is that, you know, a lot of these boys are sent away from the villages, away from their friends, away from their communities to like work, and away from their mothers, and they haven't developed an adult relationship with women.
And they probably need their mothers so much that they need to rape a womb.
And they're also there, and it's like they're men, they're working, you know, and the women are all back in the villages, the girls are in the villages, so it's part of that distortion that exists in Indian society today is to do with the current economic system that's been created.
It creates such a huge disconnect.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it's culturally it's everywhere, isn't it? Like, not the you know, the role of the woman in the house and the woman carrying a lot of the responsibility but not the power.
And not the voice, and I feel that's the privilege I will forever honor, that we have our voices back and we have our own outlets. That needs no male approval.
Yeah, I mean, we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
It's going to be listened to by thousands of people. Yeah. It's going to be there on the internet. Yeah. And we don't have to fear our lives.
Exactly. And we don't need a man to approve of it, to publish it, or how it was even like 10 years ago before all of this. Yeah. You need a publisher that was most likely owned by a man, the publishing company, whether that was approved by them. And even the whole Me Too movement, I thought that was so empowering. Whilst a lot of publications shied away from publishing these stories, suddenly you had the Shade Room, Lipstick Alley, and things that are privately owned by women. And have such a power suddenly, because they have millions of followers, give voice to women that had none before, because they were simply being ridiculed. And I was like, so much is shifting by us having our voices back, and that will shift a lot for the men, because in all honesty, I thought about it before. I thought, why would a man do certain things? And then I thought, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, because often I come across men where you speak to the female, she claims she was raped, and the man claims there's nothing, he has not done anything wrong, that she wanted this, right? So I thought, either you guys are dumb, totally full of yourself, or really you don't know any better. And then I thought, okay, let's really give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't know any better. I thought maybe it could be because we teach them in the first 5 years to survive. We teach them how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to shit, how to sleep, how to speak, how to write, how to read. Everything they learn in the first 5 years, just to survive, the basics, comes through a woman, right? The majority of things, a little bit through the dad, but the first words usually mama and this and that. And then when they finally go back into the womb where they connect with the female, there's zero guidance from us. Suddenly we're silent. We expect them to take the lead. How could they? How could they? You know, so I feel as females, it's high time to take responsibility for that too. Communication, clear boundaries, that a man clearly understands. If you receive this signal, this means no. And no is not maybe, I mean yes. No means there is consequences for you. Your ass will be on social media, whether you like it or not. Hollywood, game over. You know, this is like, pack up your job. So that he really understands there's a consequence, because sometimes boys, they're naughty. Oh yeah, they said no, let me do this, you know, this and that. Unless there's a severe consequence, like almost raising a boy is often different than raising a girl. And every mother will attest to that. She needs to raise her boy with way more authority. And I've been like a foster mother to 21 boys. So I understand these boys need authority. They'll try you. They'll try you. They'll try you. They'll try you to capacity. And if you don't have authority, where they understand there is no being played with, and this authority comes with consequence, not just, I didn't like that, I'm upset. Consequence. They won't understand. And so I believe when it comes to this whole sexual realm, because why is every woman has a story. Every single one has a story of sexual assault in some form, starting with disrespect all the way to violent rape. So pretty much every man is a perpetrator. And by some definition has raped and stolen something that he knows he didn't earn, because he took something from a woman, and the man knows, because he'll never talk to her again. He'll be hiding. His soul will tell him that was not all right, how you took this, her yoni. So I feel a lot of communication, very clear framework communication needs to happen in order for men to understand certain parameters. Just a code of conduct, a manual of consent, all these things. Like, you have to go to school to learn to drive. You're just handling a car. But handling a woman, this is all by experiment. Do you know what I mean? It's like, imagine traffic. If everybody, let's just all drive, just all have a try just and go to
fast.
Yeah, let's just go fast, really violent, like push the gas wheel, the accelerator, and let's just really be in our ferocious male energy. Havoc. And then, I jammed this car. I totally trashed this car. Let me take the next one and the next one and the next one. Because that's what they do with women. Damage one, next one, next one, next one. Like a fast food situation. So with cars, it comes with a price, it comes with a consequence. Police will come, insurance will come. A lot of consequence for a man, so you be very careful. Plus, he went to driving school.
He learnt the highway code.
He learned the code.
So the high womb code is coming.
Oh, beautiful. That's something we should work on, the high womb code, because he'll understand, That's what I also say. They're good working in the automotive industry. They're amazing when it comes to cars, because they revere their car for some reason. They don't want to trash that by the next one. Not a single man that I know. It's not a pattern for them. But with females, there's so many of them. No consequence if I trash her. It's too easy. Mm-hmm. And our generation can change that, shift it profoundly, because we can declare properly. Rule 1, if you do this, this happens. Rule 2, if you do this, this happens. Rule 3, if you do this, this happens. Basics.
And what you were sharing actually earlier about the research, was it Andrew Barnes?
Yes, Andrew Barnes.
That I think is so
it's profound.
Interesting.
It helped me to really understand my psyche.
Yeah.
Basically, he shared with me, he's a world-renowned sexuology coach, researcher, and so on, and he shared with me there was research done when a woman is aroused in a state of arousal, 3 parts in her brain shut off, and one of it is her expression, her vocal center. A woman can no longer communicate. And when you look at males, they're very verbal. They like to talk, this, that. And it resonated with me because I'm like, 2 options. We either have sex or we have a conversation. These 2 things, for me, don't go together. This always turned me off. I'm like, we can have a silent communication and you can read my codes if you really tune into me. But and a man functions completely different. A lot of them want to be guided somehow, whether that's through instructions, through noises, through sound, somehow they want guidance. And then I realized, okay, that makes perfect sense. And that's why he teaches consent. He teaches women to express their consent way before even aiming for the bedroom. And he teaches men consent. Also, because this man amazingly owns up to previous mistakes where he was acting out of the ego, and it led to certain situations. And that, I think, is that I can bow for, because you made mistakes, you owned them, not because you're a bad human being, you just didn't know no better, and your ego took over.
This is just where we are in the world.
Exactly.
And right now there's an incredible opportunity to heal this.
Exactly. It's an opportunity for men to step up and say, hey, I made these mistakes. If I heal from this and profoundly can become almost, this is a healer to thousands and thousands of women worldwide, you know, and every man, as a perpetrator, you have the opportunity, the potential to become a healer. You know, as a victim, you also have the potential to become a healer. Whatever these, like, your biggest challenges can be your biggest potentials, you know. So and he teaches women consent, and it's something that we're not so comfortable with because we've not been taught to communicate clearly beforehand.
So this is the important bit, that real consent has to happen
way before
arousal.
Before there is holding hands, so any of that.
When you're like kind of already kissing and whatever, and then it's like it's too late. It's like that before you go out for dinner. It's like the consent has to be there.
Yes,
you know?
Because that's when a woman is in a rational mindset.
Yeah.
And it also explains how a lot of women feel shitty afterwards. I don't know how that happened. I don't feel good about it. They feel something. They have been robbed of something. And how did that happen? Yeah, I didn't know what to say, or I didn't know. I you know, and
well, there's also all of these kind of rules that are in a lot of women's heads, like, well, like, now you can't say that because that's going to upset someone.
Exactly, it's going to offend him.
I better do it like this, or da-da-da, and all of these societal codes that we've picked up, you know, about like how we should be, and
also because you're in a vulnerable position. The moment you're in bed with a man that is physically stronger than you, you're already in a vulnerable position. Let that sink in. Do you want to upset this person now then? Not just physically you're in a vulnerable position, psychologically. Because for years and years and years, a woman says something, you offend a man, suddenly she's a slut, she's crazy, she's a loony. You're going to be called every name under the sun. When a man experiences rejection, good luck with that, you know? I've, like, had my fair experience with it. So it's all kind of things that, yeah, and it's a challenge for a woman to articulate it before, because, you know, we've not been taught this. And I had a session with him, so he, like, we went through this form of communication. I'm like, whoa, this is really weird for me. And I'm a very, as you can tell, outspoken person. I speak in front of big audiences. You know, I have no problem with communication. I'm not shy. And suddenly it was like, oh, I felt this was a challenge in me. Something was like, I was happy to take on that challenge, because I believe when we overcome challenges, we're really expanding and growing. So I was happy about it, but it was a challenge for me. But I feel it's amazing that he teaches that, you know, that he used what had happened to him, through him, to women, to now heal and help women.
And this is so important because, you know, in this conversation, you know, our voices have got raised, like, you know, some rage. You can feel the rage at some of these things and these atrocities throughout time that have happened. But what we are not saying in this conversation is that men are bad or like anything like that. It's like, this is just the system that we've been in, and right now we're in this amazing moment in time where there is a real opportunity to heal this shit, right, and move forward into a way that where men are able to respect women, the earth, life,
everything feminine,
and in themselves.
Thank you for saying that, because a man that honors his divine feminine will, as a natural consequence, honor you as a feminine being, divine. And I feel it all starts there. And I know presently for men, it's not an easy time here. Because all the roles that they have learned, and that's why you're absolutely right, nobody is good or bad, even though they have committed all these atrocities, all these crimes, when we look back thousands of years, destroyed the earth, destroyed the feminine, so on. It's males have been the perpetrators, but does that make them less of a victim? No. It's horrible what they have inherited, what it means to be a man, the codes, the stories that they have been told. It is hard. I almost feel it's at this present moment, it's almost harder to be a man because we already went through the fire. We already became the fire. That's how much burning we endured. They're just walking through the fire right now. The entire bodies, the entire construct being burned. We already realized, shit, this is everything burned away. Now I'm the fire. I'm still alive. And it's not easy to be a man right now. It's extremely challenging. Because as females, we communicate. No matter how hard it becomes, we communicate. We find a girlfriend. We find somebody to talk to. They've got shit bottled up since 5 generations. Nobody talked. And suddenly, their feminine is suddenly awakening in them. Meaning communication, meaning emotions, meaning talking. They're having major breakdowns, which is an amazing thing. I salute every man that breaks down because you're coming undone, and this is your biggest chance of becoming your divine, because you can only be your divine. You can only be whole if you masculine and feminine is honored, is awakened, and becomes one. Then you're balanced. But yeah, it's an amazing time, and I see so many amazing men rise out of that old patriarchy, really cracking the shells, almost like the iron bars, the prison that has imprisoned them, by a role, just a role. And no, it's not easy for guys right now, but it's time where we really need each other's support.
Yeah.
Where we as women almost need to be a psychological womb for them, to foster their feminine, to allow them to develop the feminine without feeling they'll be ridiculed and laughed at, because these are things that they have learned. Suddenly they're tapping into their creativity, into their emotions. They realize, wow, all this responsibility as a man, I don't want to shoulder it. What society tells me what it means as a man, it doesn't feel good. So allowing them to break down in a safe space where we hold space for them, being this nurturing womb. I feel that's what we need to be for a man right now, because we're each other's healer. When I see a man break down, I know you're not breaking down, you're breaking open. It's that seed that finally is turning into a tree, with infinite potentiality. And for females, the same thing, females breaking down is, you're cracking open, you're becoming this infinite, divine, whatever, Yeah.
Thank you so much. We could go on for
Yes.
many hours. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a beautiful bedtime story.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful place to leave it. We're all
Right?
cracking open,
Yeah.
flowering,
Yeah.
and we're doing it together.
Yeah.
We need each other.
Yeah, it's really that blossoming from within.
And so how can we find out how to get my secret Sears?
The secret Sears, you go onto www.secret, like the secret, and then hyphen Sears, like the planet, the goddess of womanhood, femininity. It's spelled CERES. C for Charlie, E for England, R for Richard, E for England, S for sugar.com.
And we'll post all the links, including to all of your other work, which we didn't talk about today,
No.
in the show notes. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you for having me.
For any of you that wish to purchase Secret Ceres, Mallence has kindly given all listeners 10% off. To claim this, type in the code "The Future is Beautiful," capital T, capital F, capital I, capital B, at the Secret Ceres website. The code and the link is on Mallence's page on our website, in case you want to refer back to it. As we're extending the series, we have 2 requests. The first is that you send a link to the podcast to 20 friends who you think will find it interesting. And the second is that we want to know what your favourite moments of the journey so far are for a listener special. Please record us a voice note, on your phone is fine, and tell us what has stuck out for you from the podcast, perhaps specific moments from a particular interview, or perhaps something more general. We want to know who, why, and what is inspiring you to create a beautiful future. Then email it to us at connect@thefutureisbeautiful.co. And I would like to thank our amazing team, Lucy White, who writes the blog post, titles and show notes that go with each episode, and Jack Darville, our sound editor. Thank you for listening. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book, and discover so much more over on the blog. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible by you, our community. If you loved this and would like to contribute to our Patreon campaign or join our online group to connect with other listeners, please visit www.thefutureisbeautiful.co and click on community. Please also hit subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes so we can grow. Here is to us, creating a beautiful future together.